So hi everyone, this is Andrew Dailey from MGI Research. Welcome to our session, Fintech Success, Maximizing Digital Marketing. Cutting through the noise and establishing a clear brand identity is a challenge for product managers, marketeers, and CEOs of companies large and small. And optimizing marketing spend to drive top-line revenue while keeping an eye on profitability speaks to both sales executives as well as to CFOs. And in this session, to shed more light on getting the most out of marketing and share some of the brand and marketing success secrets of some of the kind of high-profile payments companies and monetization companies, I'm delighted to be joined by Jason Goldberg, the Executive Vice President of Chicago-based Envisionit. Welcome, Jason.
Thank you, Andrew. It's great to be here.
So many marketing executives know Envisionit for your work and the success that you had with companies, the payments companies like Hyperwallet and Braintree. For those who don't know Envisionit, give us a little background on your firm.
Sure. So we're in year 20, so we've been around for quite a while now. Today our firm lives at the intersection of creative media and technology. We really are an engine for fueling growth. And so as a creative digital marketing agency, we really want to be able to influence customer journey and conversion from brand story through to the distribution of that story and to the conversion points that we're bringing in that market audience, and obviously being able to measure all of that. You mentioned financial technology. We've been heavily in that space for about 10 years now, and really technology enablement, right? We've really scaled into a variety of areas in that marketplace. But we also have clients in tourism. We run media and marketing for the city of Chicago for tourism to get people to come check out my hometown, as well as consumer products. And we've spent a lot of time in that market as well. And really, in the end, what we've learned from the velocity growth of the technology space has really provided innovation into those other markets, right? It's allowed us to really think differently and bring the learnings from technology into those spaces.
Yeah. Let's just kind of start at the beginning. When's the right time for a company? What's the right size of a company or a brand, if you will, to hire an agency?
Yeah. So I get asked it a lot, obviously, because we're looking for partners ourselves. I will say this: there have been success stories of agencies partnering well with businesses, throughout life cycle, right? A business is launching, they haven't even gone out for a round of capital, or they're bootstrapped. They need someone to get their brand up live, right? So bringing in a partner, bringing in that outside thinking it makes sense. For our firm, and really for stages of business where you're really looking to scale growth, right? Where you have gotten some foundational elements in place, but you're really just ready to start pushing out in the market. The key factor for us isn't necessarily size of business. Runway is important, right? You need to have the revenue to support it, to make the impact. But it is actually the decision to have someone who owns marketing within your company. Founders or CEOs that have been put into a business, there's so much that you're trying to own. And being able to have someone who can be the direct partner with the agency, that's where we see success time and time again, right? Where you have that partner. And I mentioned it earlier, but of critical importance and something to kind of think about when you're doing that, because these are two investments, right? You're putting someone in place to lead marketing as well as the partner to help execute. They need to actually have the authority. I've seen so many times where they're like, oh, you're going to run marketing, but the leadership team still can't let go, right? And founders, I think, run into this struggle a lot because they have so much passion for what they've done. And it really prevents scale and growth. One of the things that we look at as an organization is, if we're going to help a business grow, we have to find opportunities to mitigate waste, because there's a ton of waste in marketing. And one of those areas is alignment. And so being able to have that person in place, they're aligned, have the authority, that's when we're ready to rock.
And what should any CEO or CMO expect from an agency? What should they be looking for to receive?
Yeah. First off, a clear cadence of communication, right? I think, you talk about partnership, collaboration gets thrown around quite a bit as a word, right? We're so collaborative. But the fact of the matter is that if there's not a clear understanding of accountability on both sides of the fence, because it's a partnership, right? You're not just saying, here, agency, go do all of this. You should have a clear vision of what communication cadence looks like. What are the accountabilities? Hey, this is what we did the last 7 days. Here's what's coming up the next 7 days. Here's what the next 90 days hold and what our responsibilities are in that. That is number one aspect of an expectation. Number two, transparency is a word that's very easily said and not really lived up to. In the end, agencies, I find personally, spend so much time trying to protect their interests that they actually hamper the relationship and create waste. For us, transparency is more of a promise of saying, there's nothing to hide. You should expect from your agency to give you all raw performance data. Dashboards are great. They exist now and they help with communication. We have dashboards for our clients. But what we do is we make a promise to say, you want anything from behind the scenes. You want all the raw PPC data from the last 6 months? It is yours. You want to see what we're doing for targeting data? It is yours. We are not here to hide anything because frankly, again, that's an area of waste that we're trying to get rid of. Now you'll notice I did not say to expect performance or good customer service. You should expect those things, but from my lens, you go to a restaurant, you expect good food and good service, right? And so the performance and the partnership at the customer service level, that's table stakes. You should be getting that. You should be expecting it. Now, the second part of your question is what not to expect. So we mentioned our experience in fintech. We've been in the marketplace, for almost 12 years now, running programs for fintech companies. You hire an agency because they have a track record of success and experience to leverage. But what the key component of that is they speak the language, right? It allows you to get there faster. So whether it's consumer product, whether it's fintech, it allows you to get to the relationship faster. However, the thing you should not expect is for the agency to know your business better than you. We see this mistake quite a bit where businesses come in, they're like, oh, you've worked with 4 payment companies. You know everything we have going on, go to town. It goes back to what I said earlier about having that marketing leader in place and having them have the authority. They're the collaborative linchpin of the partnership, right? So our ability to come in and speak the language faster, right? Have a common dialogue because we've been there and done that. Super helpful. It moves, it creates velocity. But in the end, it is a, storming, norming, and performing aspect of building a relationship, right? And if you can, with experience, you can get through those early stages faster. But if you're walking in expecting that agency to know your business as well as you do, or even better, that's something I would avoid.
So you mentioned dashboards and being able to track very transparently how things are going. What are the, in your experience, the companies that you engage with the best, what are the metrics that they're using to measure their overall marketing performance and to measure your relationship together?
Yeah. Obviously everything starts with the objectives you're trying to hit, right? What are the outcomes that we're looking for? So really first sitting down and identifying, here are sales and marketing objectives for the organization. It starts to set a baseline for how we're going to interact as partners. But mistakes that I've seen is when there isn't alignment at the leadership level. So as an example, you might be going for IPO. You might be going for a capital raise. You might be going for an exit and acquisition. The fact of the matter is there are different paths to achieving those outcomes. And if the sales and marketing goals don't actually match those, you might actually have a misalignment and waste a lot of money going down a path where, hey, lead gen might be something that is of high priority, but you aren't necessarily caring about how much they're transacting. You want as many accounts as possible, as an example. That's different than trying to achieve a revenue story, right? And so we really look at how do we get alignment at outcome, before you start getting down to the next layer, which is really what are those key performance indicators that your organization needs, right? So if you're B2B and you've got MQL and SQLs, right, and you understand, hey, this is how we're viewing a lead coming in and what that's going to mean to the sales team, that's obviously different than a consumer environment or an e-commerce environment and what conversion looks like. So really being able to understand what are those KPIs from a qualified prospect standpoint and a converted client standpoint. And then we have our marketing KPIs, right? Our kind of metrics that we utilize, so anything from engagement metrics to lead scoring and capabilities that are along there. So your agency should be able to help you navigate and choose what does the marketing leader need to be able to do their job effectively? What needs to be reported up to leadership to be able to do their job effectively? And then in regards to being able to gauge the performance of the agency, if those things I mentioned earlier about transparency and capability are all in place, right? Well, then what you really get to do, and what every agency should have the courage to do, is define what they believe performance is going to be before the campaign starts. So we do a channel pro forma before we go into any program that we're running, so that we can say, hey, either based on your baselines as an organization, based on what we've seen in similar clients in the marketplace, or based on, hey, educated information that we're pulling out of research, you should be able to say, here's what we believe this program can do. And frankly, you should expect and hold your agency accountable to hitting it. But it's about the path of getting towards it, right? Optimization is important. Not everything works right out of the gate. And so what you need to be able to do is say, hey, not worry about the channel level, or did this ad that I liked, that I approved, do well compared. As a business leader, you should be really looking at, hey, are we getting closer to the pro forma so that we can continue to refine that model as we move forward, expand and scale?
Yeah, and so, fundamentally companies want always more visibility, more qualified leads. Is that, and simplistically, it's often looked at as, okay, that's simply a function of how much money do I spend?
Mm-hmm.
Is that overly simplistic to think of it just simply as more money equals more visibility equals more leads? Or is there a smarter, kind of more nuanced way to think about it?
Yeah, so there, I think, and it's interesting because the views of private equity and VC versus the views of an internal team and leadership versus the views of the marketing, they're all different throughout that, right? Everybody views that scenario differently. I look at value of prospect, right? I look at value of account and how you're defining what that is. You need a certain level of investment to get a certain level of return in any scenario. But the question is lifetime value important? That's something to kind of look at, right? If you're looking at a customer that you're bringing in, are you considering it the first transaction that you're judging performance against, right? So that visibility you require to get that client in the door, that's important. But how that scales into, is LTV important, right? Someone that is looking at exiting a company as quickly as possible isn't necessarily thinking about lifetime value. Someone that's going to IPO and wanting to take over the universe might be, right? And so you really have to get alignment again on what the objectives are. And then you build the program into that. And then you identify what the investment needs to be based on the landscape in order to execute and pull it off.
So that gets into another issue, which is, what's a realistic time frame to expect results? And how should a CMO or even a CEO think about what a reasonable or realistic expectation is for, here's an investment and here's how long I should be willing to see the progression before I declare success or something less than that?
So I promise I'm not playing to the audience, but I'm going to say right away. And I think it's important to kind of, there's a variety of caveats that come with me making that statement. So as you are engaging in marketing activities, we really try to help businesses prioritize investment. If you have 10 markets and 10 targets that you can go after, you could dilute your investment across all of them really easily and create a ton of waste. We bring a methodology to really look at prospect mindset against business value, and we score against it. We have a scoring mechanism to do it so that we can say, okay, well, out of these 10, these are the 3 or 4 that are really going to get us the faster return because they see the universe the same way as what we're trying to accomplish. And then when you start prioritizing at that level, it allows you to bring it down to tactics that can turn the dial faster. Now, what's nice is, whether, my head of our client team doesn't like low-hanging fruit, he goes gold on the ground, right? And so he'll look at that and say, okay, we've identified our prospect group and we've prioritized them. And now we're going to say, okay, now that we've prioritized it to folks that we're going to more easily convert, what are the tactics that are going to allow us to get there faster? And so when I say there are caveats, right? Do you have a prospect lead list going into this? Do you have access to data or benchmarks on past performance, right? These are things that are going to turn the dial differently. But so when I say, can you expect it right away? You can, as long as the outcome you're looking for is realistic and that it's aligned to the parent outcome of the organization, because those initial tactics are going to plateau. So while you could see some quick wins based on those initial activities, they're going to plateau. And so what we really look at as an organization is, okay, what are the always on things that we should be doing as we are starting to move investment? And I think as it's starting to scale investment, and I think in the technology space, it's so fascinating because you're all disrupting the marketplace, right? And what that might mean is you might be creating categories that people have never even heard of, which means you might have a longer road to building audience awareness, audience education, right? Getting them to a point where they're even able to be interested and convert. There's more work involved there. There will be low-hanging fruit so you can see some initial results, but you really have to we look at those ceilings, the complexity as you're scaling the business. What are the things that are going to push you through? And those are kind of those episodic moments where you really have to shift investment into tactics that are going to get you there down the road.
So give us one example, an extraordinary example of how a company has leveraged your agency successfully.
Just one extraordinary example?
Just one.
So I will build into it. So, it's been 20 years, right? And we've seen a lot of great relationships scale forward. And you mentioned Braintree early on, and it was great taking them from an initial email marketing program that we did through running media in 5 continents, right? And through the acquisition. What was really great about that was a story of transformation. And I believe that in any partnership with a agency relationship, you should be able to look at it at the end and say, here's what we were like before this relationship happened. Here's what transformation looks like. Here's what we became because of this. So in the case of Braintree, it was really about us helping them realize that the Ruby on Rails community wasn't going to allow them to scale out of that into enterprise if we didn't start looking at the financial audience and what their mindset was in going into market versus just the developer community, which is what Braintree built their initial foundation on. In tourism with the city of Chicago, I'm giving you more than one, but I'll get to the one that in tourism, the city of Chicago, you've got years of a more antiquated industry, right? Who looks at marketing in a different way. So they were doing large local buys in the regional market to bring folks in because that was the low-hanging fruit for them. But an analysis led to show that more dollars would be spent in the city of Chicago if they scaled up to national and international tourists, right? Spend more on them, but they will spend more here, and thus the return is better. And so we really started to look at, okay, how do we transform into behavioral and contextual targeting versus just looking at, hey, these folks are interested in tourism. So, there's tons of stories like that, but the one that sticks out for me is our clients in this COVID environment. We've all been met with challenges, right? And it's been the folks that have been able to pivot in the marketplace, that have been able to react to the challenges. That transformation, being able to leverage a partnership effectively to get there, that has been a really fantastic experience for us. So the example I wanted to, I'll leave you is this. Workforce engagement has been a big marketplace for a while now. We have a SaaS client, they're called Engagement Multiplier. And they'd seen growth over the last 4 years that we've had the product on the marketplace. Well, leadership stopped caring about retention and recruiting, and they were just worried about, hey, how do we keep our team moving in a remote workforce, right? Suddenly the whole reasons to buy this product shifted dramatically. And so what we did is they pivoted product to take it from initial oversight of mindset or of engagement in the workplace, get a score and see how your team is doing, free offering, to how do you work from home and win? And it turned into more of a consultative approach where they actually build out new tooling to help business leaders measure their team's performance in the remote environment. We shifted the message and the program to adjust to that, right? And we saw a 300% increase in leads come in. And so, you know, when we talk about success stories for us, the impact that we have is critically important to us as an agency. We'll never be one of 20 agencies working for McDonald's. If McDonald's is watching right now, your money's not no good, but we'll just never feel the impact of what we're doing. But for us to be able to see those impacts, see that transformation, that's what successful partnership's all about. And it's been great as we've gone forward. So I gave you more than one, but just to tell that complete story.
We're almost out of time here, but one final very serious question.
Yeah.
Do all of your clients end up being acquired by PayPal?
Yes, all of them, every single one of them. We've been part of about 10 acquisitions over the years, and even enterprise, or sorry, Energizer buying New Finish Car Polish with us as their agency, or Braintree becoming part of PayPal, or SecureNet becoming part of WorldPay. It's great to have an idea of where the exits are and be aligned on how to get there and fuel that transformation. So we wish it for all of them that want it.
Terrific. Well, with that, I'd like to thank Jason Goldberg, the EVP of Chicago-based Envisionit digital agency with a tremendous history of driving growth for emerging growth and established companies in the broader monetization and tech space. So with that, Jason, thanks again. I know your networking details are in the platform here. Reach out to Jason, reach out via the Envisionit booth. And with that, thank you very much. This concludes our session. Thanks.
Andrew, thank you. Thank you, everybody else. This was a pleasure.